All right, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Gridiron Uncensored podcast. We appreciate you being here, listening to us. We're going through the season previews, the SEC. We just got done with Auburn, Arkansas, and Alabama. Tonight, we got Georgia, Kentucky, and LSU. Obviously, one main contender, maybe another one, maybe another. I don't know. Some people are talking, so we're gonna get into these teams and do a little preview on them. Remember, these are previews; they're not projections. We're going to do that in a couple episodes down the line, right before the season starts. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Gentlemen, let's go ahead and just kick it off. We got Georgia first. And like last year, they lost out on the playoffs. They lost the SEC championship game. So that was disappointing for them at what they expected. But they kind of got a consolation prize there with Florida State and all their teams sitting out, and they were able to dog walk them really 63-3 to finish out. And who knows what would have been different? Nobody can tell you that because they sat out. So either way, Georgia going into 2024, they're hellbound on going to the playoffs. With an expanded playoff, that shouldn't be a problem for this team. So obviously, plenty of optimism, but they want national title. That's what they're looking for. What do you guys think going into this 2024, Trevor? Any changes that's been made on the staff or losses?
Oh gosh, not a ton. They did add new receivers coach in James Coley and Josh Crawford as the new Bulldogs running back coach. Other than that, not a whole lot of changes for Kirby. Just getting really good coaches to coach these elite athletes that they have coming into Georgia. Yeah, that's really it. There's not a whole lot of changes going on. Kirby just kind of reloads with coaches. These position coaches get offensive coordinator positions maybe or something along those lines, and he's just having to retool his position coaches usually. So yeah, that's kind of where he's at right now.
Yeah, and along with other changes, like that they've made along, some of the positional coaches that you expect from these teams are going to be, Alabama's, Georgia's. You're going to lose, coaches. It's just going to happen when you're up in the best. People are going to poach from you. But like you said, they usually find talent pretty easily, not just in the coaching realm, but also in the portal. Let's talk about the portal just a little bit. They had 11 in and 24 out. The 15th overall class, and pairing that with bringing in 68% production returning, that does include portal guys. They're looking at another very strong year. Biggest ones, guys coming in: London Humphreys, Xavier McLeod, Trevor Etienne, the big one. Kobe Young. Those are guys that you're looking at instant impact. And I believe it's Urosic. As the tight end from Stanford. They're really excited about him. Obviously, you got to replace a very, very good tight end from last season. So we're seeing what they're going to do with this portal class. Again, a lot of guys are going to come in and start. Key losses, though, they did have 24 losses. Got Cam Riley. We met. Oh, excuse me, going down the line, wrong one. Tyler Williams, AJ Harris, Dumas Johnson was one that we're going to talk about in a little bit. Xavier Sorry that we mentioned, and then Nayland Green, guys like that, big losses. Depth pieces, also starter caliber players. So they've got some places to fill holes in, but I think they did just fine in the portal. Boys, what do you think about this portal class, or even just the team in general heading into this season?
I mean, look, the portal class is what it is. Kirby and Georgia kind of sell themselves at this point. Transfer portal they truly are using it for what I believe it's used for. Just fill in some key pieces that you need here and there. They're not going overboard because really, if you want to talk about it, they have the number one recruiting class in the country for 2024. And they have the second best player in the country already committed at cornerback. They have the 10th best player in the country committed at linebacker, and the list just goes on and on. They have 4 5-star recruits coming in. all on the defensive side of the ball. So a team that already is really, really, really good on defense is now just getting better and deeper every single year. And actually, let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The top 7 recruits that they have are all on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
Out of this number 1 recruiting class. So, guys, it's just honestly for Georgia, it is literally the best. Just kind of keep getting better as far as their defense goes. And Trevor Etienne, I think, will be very good. I think he'll be a very good addition. More than likely the day 1 starter for running back, but it's Georgia. They get such great athletes at that position in particular. That's not necessarily a foregone conclusion that he ends up getting the majority of the snaps, especially, if they're in a ground and pound type of thing. I feel like that they probably have another running back that fits the ground and pound mold better than maybe Trevor Etienne does.
Yeah. I mean, go ahead, Blake.
Oh, you're good. There are a lot of people's favorites to win the SEC and a lot of people's favorites to win it all. I mean, on paper, they are probably top to bottom the strongest team in the country. Yeah. I mean, I have on, my notes on them, their only weakness that I really see is the back end on the defense. Just because they lost 3 starters. But, I mean, offensively, you got Carson Beck returning, Dominic Lovett, Arian Smith. Got 4 coming back on the offensive line. I mean, and then Etienne, he's my key player for them coming in out of the portal. I mean, they're locked and loaded. And the schedule, I think, we're going to get to that. I mean, everything just lines up good for Georgia. I think, I'm worried about them. I think they're going to be.
They are going to be a problem for just about everybody, I feel like.
Yeah. Well, again, we mentioned it. We won't harp on it too much, but recruiting is key. You have to build through the recruiting, ways of doing it like they used to.
100%.
You can't just do portal. I think you can work it and still have a strong team, but you've got to recruit well. And Georgia does that, so they're loaded. So when you look at guys leaving for the portal, you're seeing a lot of 4-star type, 3-star, highly rated 3-star guys in the portal leaving them. They're all talented dudes. They're all depth players or starters, but they've got somebody. They're either forced out because, hey, I got somebody coming up that's maybe a little bit better than
bigger,
me,
faster, stronger, whatever.
That needs to start. So that's why one reason I like the portal is because these teams aren't just hoarding the talent. You see a lot of good players that are leaving this team. But look at who they're bringing in too. So either way, let's go in and talk a little bit more, I guess, on this team. Like you mentioned, Blake, they're loaded. Wide receiver, I'm a little bit, I wouldn't say concerned at all because they're loaded. But I think that'll be where they just need to mesh and, with the quarterback play and just see how they fall in. But Colby Young coming in, 6'5", 215 from Miami. Huge target. That's going to help out a lot.
And the Humphreys kid coming from Vanderbilt. Now I was going to say Villanova. Same useless team. Whatever. It doesn't. Whatever. But. But I mean, I feel like he's a good big body receiver. 6'3", 190, I think. I think he could be a contributor as well.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not worried about him, but when you look at this team as a whole, I'm like, okay, I want to see how this wide receiver core works together.
I would say the talent depth at wide receiver, I would agree with, is not as deep as it may have been in the past, but I still think it's manageable because, I mean, Carson Beck kind of came out of nowhere, didn't know a whole lot about him last year, but he was pretty darn accurate most of the year. Like, he didn't make a whole lot of mistakes. And I would imagine that with 1 year under his belt, he's going to show a little bit more growth, a little bit more accuracy. And I think it's just a matter of just having guys at the wide receiver position that understand and know how to play the position well enough to get themselves open.
Yeah, I think they're going to be solid. And Beck's probably one of the leaders in the Heisman race right now, in my opinion, as well. Defensively, Blake mentioned back end. That's really all I want to see. Front end is going to be dangerous. they're loaded with talent, boys. Let's look at the schedule because it's tough. Okay, it's tough, but it's also not bad after their last bye week there. So you start off with Clemson. You got to win against Tennessee Tech. Then you got a tough, great Kentucky team. And then you go on and you've got Alabama. Boys, what are you thinking on the schedule?
Well, I don't see a problem.
Let them know how you feel.
I mean, let's just be real about this. Texas, Alabama are probably the only games that I think are going to be a game. I know a lot of people are very high on Ole Miss. I am too, to some regard, but they are yet to get to the level of Georgia or Alabama. Alabama, while they are going through a coaching change, still has a lot of the talent that they got them to where they were last year and the year before. They're not young, they're experienced, which I think will go far in the grand scheme of things. And then I think Texas is an under what's the word I'm looking for? I know they're going to be like a top 4 team, but they are loaded just about in every position at this point in time. And so I think it's Georgia, my bad. Texas and Alabama. And then those are the games that I'd be concerned about. Ole Miss, maybe, but I don't foresee Ole Miss being a problem, but it is in Oxford. So there is that.
Yeah, I don't see Ole Miss being an issue either. I would watch out for Clemson in week 1 because it's week 1.
It's week 1. Exactly right. Yeah.
But I agree with you, Trevor. On the road at Bama and Texas, that's really, the epitome of their season. That's the 2 toughest games.
Yeah.
I have been assured by Tennessee fans that because they won 10 games 2 years ago, they own the SEC now and they will beat Georgia. So I've been assured, on Twitter, Facebook, and whatever.
Yeah, I don't think Nico I'm gonna lay is gonna do anything, but
I can't wait for your name analogies this season.
Yeah, God,
Lord help, be so great. Hey, we get to see week 1 against Georgia with old.
That's right, and it's gonna be. It's coming right back out. I did it last season. It's coming right back out. I promise.
I can't wait for the season, boys. But no, I agree. Obviously, Alabama, Texas, Clemson, that's the main 3. Other than that, don't stumble up. Last year, they almost fell against Vandy. They almost fell against Auburn. So those are teams. Georgia, you got to handle your business. Don't let anybody stumble. Georgia Tech, too. Don't forget, that was kind of close.
Well, Ole Miss gave them a run for the first half, and they just pulled away. But Ole Miss was giving them a game.
Exactly right. And I feel like the Georgia Tech game may be a situation where they're like mostly second stringers playing. Not initially, maybe first drive or so. Make sure everything's clicking still, and then everybody else is going to get rotational time.
Yeah, and they finished strong against a very weak Florida State team. I cannot undersell how bad Florida State was, and they demolished them.
It might have been the worst showing of a top tier team that has been all season
a disgrace
that I've ever seen. I have never seen a team just completely and utterly quit like that.
Yeah,
sad.
I don't know, boys. It was no bueno. But let's see how Clemson starts off this year, and if that high from last season's bowl win, will continue against Clemson. Gentlemen, let's move on to Kentucky. By the way, Georgia 10.5 over under. You probably already knew that. They're again favorites to win it all. So let's talk Kentucky, because this team, I think, it's pretty interesting. To be honest with you, and they've got a lot. They got a lot to talk about. 2023. Not so much. 7-6 overall. They lost to Clemson in the bowl game. They got trounced by Georgia, beat down by Mizzou. Alabama, the same thing. Then they had a couple of tight losses, but they want to see what this team can do in 2024. Mark Stoops almost left them to Texas A&M. but then shit happened in the midnight hour. Now he's back.
Yep. He's back.
What is Mark Stoops going to do this season to prove to this team, to prove to the community, and just, hey, we can get Kentucky to the next level. You've already been here for a long time. Let's see what you can do. Any coaching changes, Trevor? Anything?
No, they did. They did do contract extensions for the top 4 coaches under Mark Stoops. They did do contract extensions for all of them. So solidifying the coaching that they have there at Kentucky was a priority for them. So they did do that this offseason. Otherwise, there's no real major changes. I think there's some smaller positional changes may have been made, but the offensive and defensive coordinators are sticking around, at least for the foreseeable future.
All right, cool. Portal-wise, changes again. They brought in 13 players. They lost 22 to the transfer portal. They came in with the 21st overall class, so that's pretty nice. They've got a slew of quarterbacks coming in just to, shore up their depth, but it's pretty well known, it seems, that Brock Vandegrift is going to be the the main quarterback, and he comes in. He's from Georgia. He's a former 5-star quarterback, coming out of high school. Just never got a chance there because look who they've had. So he comes in. UK immediately, they're like, okay, we got somebody that we really like. They brought in wide receivers, Raymond Cottrell, Chip Trainum from Ohio State. You're building some positions on the line, and Gerald Mincy to help solidify that. They like what they've brought in. Though they did lose some players too, Keaton and Destin Wade, guys like Dinkins, and then Jordan Robinson. Not a lot of huge losses that I'm aware of when I look at this class, but I think who they brought in really outweighs it. They also, guys, brought in 72% returning production. So this is a well-rounded team of guys that have played plenty of ball. Though last year, 98th offense, 43rd on defense. So this is another one. You have strong defensive play. Let's see if that offense can take another step. You want to see better quarterback play than what they had last year because it was lackluster at times. And then the running game. You want to see them step up with Trainum and see what he can do for you. Boys, what do you see on this team? Again, this is, I think, an interesting team to look at.
Yeah, it is an interesting team. They have a top 25 recruiting class, and it looks like their concentration in this year's recruiting class was all defense. They have, let's see here, 4 top 200 players. I mean, one's a little outside the top 200, but I whatever, it's fine. They went all the way down. From Kentucky, they went down, got a safety out of Alabama, 8th best player at his position in the country, nationally ranked at 195th in Cam Dooley. Nice safety, real good safety that I think could potentially be one of those. What do they call him, Brennan? Like kind of like a hybrid between a safety and a linebacker. He stands at 6'4", 200 pounds. So, he puts a little meat on the bones, and we're talking like a really solid and difference-making linebacker in coverage at 6'4".
Yeah.
So I think that's a great one. They got a D lineman at 6'3.5", 245 pounds out of the state of Kentucky. He's a 4-star, but he's the top. He's 89th ranked, 9th best at his position in the country, best in the state of Kentucky. So they I thought they did really good picking up a few players a lot at the defensive position. Mm-hmm. They nothing to really jump for joy at on the offensive side of the ball. So it'll be interesting to see how that side of the ball actually goes, for lack of a better term, because they did not, from what I see, nothing that's really jumps off the page at me as a big difference maker on the offensive side of the ball. So I'm curious to see how Mark Stoops kind of runs his offense this year.
Yeah, I would say they're a lot like Arkansas to me. They have the pieces there. I'm not disagreeing per se with Trevor, but I do think Brock Vandegrift coming in, could be a difference maker offensively for them. They just did not have good quarterback play, but how he fares, that's going to make or break Kentucky defensively. I mean, they had the top rush defense in the SEC last year.
Yeah.
They got Deion Walker and Maxwell Hairston coming back. That's a monster duo. And then the Georgia transfer, Jamon Johnson.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody you can get from Georgia is going to benefit your team. They had a horrible ranked offense, but their receiving core was actually near the top in the SEC and nationally. They just need a quarterback that can get the ball to them. So I do look at them a lot like how we talked about Arkansas. There are pieces in place for them to be successful. They've just got to do the work and do it.
Yeah. Trevor, were you going to say something? Or
I was going to say yes. I'm okay. So I sort of misspoke. I mean, yes, of course, Vandegrift could be a difference maker. That being said, I don't think that that being said, I don't think their running back room is very strong. And while their wide receiving group is good, according to the nationally ranked people, I don't know how good they are against the SEC defenses as much as a lot of people. I don't know. I don't have a whole lot of faith in them at this point, mainly because they have to reconnect with a new quarterback. So we'll see. We'll see how that all kind of plays out. But
yeah, and like again, it all depends on Vandegrift. How is he going to be? The O-line we mentioned should be pretty strong. They need to get better in run support, but they brought in guys from the portal to help. Tight end, they like what they have there. So I'm interested to see what this team's going to do defensively. They brought in help. DJ Waller from Michigan. We're kind of as Michigan fans expecting him to kind of try to step up this season. Since we lost some talent there. But hey, he moved on. Other guys are stepping in, and then safety from Alabama, Kristen Story too. Curious to see how he steps up. But really, they've got strong defense. Deion Walker, that dude's going to be named that you should know. Linebacker core with Dumas Johnson again should get better. I think this is going to be a solid team. They have an over under 6.5, guys. So if you guys are good, let's talk about some schedule on this Kentucky team. Because again, 6.5 is not bad. There's some hope there. But it's about, hey, that's what last year was at. They hit, let's see what they got this year. First game, go get a win, and then you get immediately into SEC play.
Yeah, and that's South Carolina, I feel like should be a win since it is they are coming into Lexington. But then they get the monster that is Georgia coming into Lexington as well. And I'm sorry to say, Kentucky fans, I don't give you a ton of chances with them. And you would have to really, really play your tails off to beat Georgia.
Yeah.
Not saying it's impossible, but it's improbable. Ohio, I don't know, Blake. Outside of Georgia and Texas, the Louisville game at the end of the season always can be that's a weird one. Last season it was a weird one. We'll see how this season shakes out because actually I think Kentucky is actually better than Louisville overall this season than they were. I didn't look at them going into that game the same way as I do now, but we'll see.
I would say the schedule kind of works in their favor. The two games, obviously the Georgia and the Texas game, those are going to be tough wins, but the rest of them, I mean, they could win all of them. I think they could beat Ole Miss. They could beat Vanderbilt, Florida, Auburn, Tennessee. And then you got games like Murray State, Southern Miss, South Carolina. I mean, every game's a tough game, but those are all winnable matchups. And Ole Miss, I'm not sold on them. I mean, that they've had talent year after year after year, and Kiffin just can't seem to get them over that 8-9 win hump. So, in Kentucky, I think they've got a solid team, especially if they get good quarterback play out of Vandegrift. I mean, they could be a dangerous team in the East, and they could upset teams like Georgia and Texas.
Yeah.
So, we'll see.
Yeah, like I said, I don't think they're going to, win the conference, that type of stuff. But again, another dangerous team that we're talking about that's got pieces, but with the portal and everything else, we want to see how it meshes with what you brought back, and that's what we're curious about with this Kentucky team because they've got pieces, guys. That I think they're going to be better than they were last year. And last year they won 7 games, so could they win 8? Could they win 9? There's room for it. They got to be on top of it. And Mark Stoops has to have this thing running, full bore every single week. You cannot let up. But I guess we'll see. We'll see when we get there. Defensive back is another one I mentioned. Really want to see them step up this year too. All right, boys, let's move on. We got LSU next, and this is a lot of hype on this team, especially on the social media platforms, Twitter, and all that. Everybody's excited to see what this team's going to do just because of how Wisconsin game ended last year and their new quarterback. So they're like Nussmeier, he's it. He's the guy. But I will say too, look what you had last season, all right? And it's still you got to fix the defense. And Trevor, it seems like they probably did with their coaching change. What do you think on that, or is there anything else? And then we'll move on.
Man, I'll tell you what. With Baker coming in, which is I think an improvement. Also, obviously they lost Mike Denbrock, which we covered a little during our ACC. They lost Mike Denbrock to the Notre Dame for the same position that he was holding with LSU. So they're kind of splitting the duties of offensive coordinator this season between Joe Sloan and Cortez Hankton, who respectively are going to be co-offensive coordinators. Joe Sloan is also the quarterback's coach, and Cortez Hankton is the wide receiver coach. Slag Nagel is tight ends coach, and Blake Baker, obviously I talked about him already. He's the new DC linebackers coach. And I think overall they actually improved, believe it or not, on their coaching. Now the offense is going to be a bit tricky. I don't want to say they improved on the offense necessarily, because I thought that the offensive coordinator, Mike Denbrock, did a great job last season.
Yeah.
Although I did think that he allowed his quarterback to run far more than he needed to or should have. But that being said, you got to trust your players to make the right decisions in the moment type of deal.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see how the coaching staff kind of comes together. But all in all, from everything that I've read coming out of the Bayou, is that everyone seems to be very happy with the hires up to this point.
Yeah, the D coordinator hire, I think that's huge. Obviously, last year, let's talk some stats real quick because they bring back 64% of their players. They had the number 1 overall total offense last season, the 105th rated defense last season. Missouri's defense was really sound last year, and they went out and poached him. And Missouri was expecting him to come back and to sign a contract, and they went out, poached him, brought him down. That's huge for this LSU team. And they're another one that recruits very well. I mean, they're loaded with talent. Yep. So transfer portal wise as well, 41st in the portal. It's not a huge class. They said they have 64% returning. But they only brought in 9. They lost 27. So you are losing a good bit of depth guys, starters as well, across the board. But they like who they brought in on this portal class. Jair Brown, Gilbert coming in from TAMU, AJ Swan, another quarterback to kind of fill in the gap just in case. But they really love Nussmeier there, and they think he's going to be the next real deal. Again, key out Jackson Howard, Logan Diggs, Lance Hurd, Jalen Brown, and Quincy Wiggins. Biggest problem LSU had this offseason in the portal, they didn't get the defensive lineman that they were hoping for. They did get one guy in Suggs, coming up, but they wanted more. They wanted guys from the Power 4 grouping. They missed out on them. And there was some talk on Twitter, something's going on in the Bayou. They didn't get who they wanted. They got outbid. So that I'll leave that to you guys, you LSU fans. Let us know what happened there. But Yeah, that's the biggest question mark on this team, I think. Interior line, and because they got to be able to stop the run. Last year it didn't happen. Gentlemen, what do you think about this team? Offense, defense, that type of stuff.
Well, I'll tell you what, is that you're right. The transfer portal is lacking any sort of pop for an LSU team that I feel like would be in high demand for transfer guys. But like you said, defense was in high demand, especially the defensive line this year in the transfer portal. Very high demand, and people were spending money to get the top tier defensive linemen.
Yeah.
And I don't know what LSU's situation is and how they deal with the transfer portal and or the collective, how much they allot for how much they allot or allow to be spent, whatever the case may be. They still had a top 10 recruiting class. And I will say this, Brendan, is that I would say 90% of the recruits that they have brought in this season are on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
I think they have 1, 2, 3, 4. I think 5 out of all of the recruits that they have, which is 20, are on the offensive side of the ball. Everything is either safeties, edge rushers, linebackers. But there are no D tackles in their recruiting class this season.
Yeah.
Nope. Sorry. There's one. I'm sorry. There's one. I lied. Two that are 3 stars that probably will never see the field.
God, dog. Hey,
20 recruits, man. I can't read. Whatever. It is what it is. I'm just here. I'm just a pretty fucking face here. No, whatever. It is what it is.
Here's so he doesn't get fined, boys. Lord help us.
Man.
But no,
this ain't a kid's show, folks. This ain't a kid's show. Anyway, they have a really good recruiting class. I really like what they did. However, I do look to see that LSU might be a little weak on the D line. I feel like they will be, or maybe not weak, but thin. Thin would be a better word to describe them.
Yeah, I feel you. Blake, what do you think about this team?
I agree. Defensively, they have to make an improvement. Last year's defense was absolutely, it was atrocious. Offensively, I don't know. You're judging off of the Wisconsin win and expecting a Joe Burrow out of Nussmeier, and he was good. Don't get me wrong. I just think it's a big ask to replace the production of Jaden Daniels and just assume that he's going to come in and be able to step in and do that. And I'm not saying he's not able to, but a lot of people are basing that off of the Wisconsin win. And I don't know how much I put stock into that. They got a solid offensive line. I just think it's a big ask. And I don't know. I'm still out on LSU.
Man. It's big ass, man. Speaking of big ass, Nussmeier's going to have to go and play USC right out the gate. And that's a big ass to have him produce right out the gate.
Yeah.
No easing on into the offense or anything like that.
Well, we can move right into the schedule because actually a lot of what I have to say about them pertains to the schedule.
Yeah,
sure. That's just the Alabama game and opening with USC, obviously. But outside of that, I think the rest of it's a winnable schedule. They got UCLA as well. They could make some noise in the SEC. I've got to see production out of Nussmeier.
And I think that's where the hype is because it happened once in the game. You see live action. This isn't like, for Michigan, you're hoping that Alex Orji is going to be, an efficient passer. All we saw was in the spring game. This was a full game where this guy's wheeling and dealing. And so that's why I think LSU is very excited. And then the schedule lines up well. They got really some strong wide receivers out of the portal. CJ Daniels, coming over from Liberty. So there's targets there. You look at the schedule, USC, they're reloading. They're trying to figure that out defensively. Offense should be fine. Again, quarterback play. How are they going to do there? UCLA is another one. This is a team that should be 5-0 going into the Ole Miss game. Like you said, this is a team that's going to make noise. It just is. Can Nussmeier hold up to the entire season, and can he carry that weight? And then defensively too, can he shore up the run? Guys, what do you think about the rest of the schedule? Sorry to jump in.
Yeah, no, you're good. And really, honestly, with the funny thing about the SC game and LSU game is that both of the quarterbacks in this game come off of hype from the last game of the season that both of these teams played.
Yeah,
because I don't know about what you guys know about the USC kid, but he has so much hype going around him right now over there in SC land, that it's almost the same as Nussmeier. It's just less loud because most of us on the east side of the country don't get to hear a lot of what they're talking about. But that it's them. I mean, Oklahoma, I know a whole lot of question marks with Oklahoma, and they are breaking in a new quarterback as well. I just think that they're going to be a lot more dangerous than people realize. And with LSU's defense, a big question mark for me. I think that I see 3 losses in this season for LSU, and that pretty much puts them. If I was a bed man, that would probably put them out, judging by what I think the way the SEC season's going to kind of shake out.
Yeah, I mean, a 3-loss LSU team is going to be probably right on that edge, especially depending on who they lose to.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm really curious to see how this season plays out for them, because if the offense can be even top 25, I'm not saying it's going to be number 1, but you get a top 20 offense, and then you shore up that defense with the coordinator position. That's going to help a lot. If you can even work down into the 60 range, this is going to be a very dangerous team. But it depends. Nussmeier, let's see what he does.
Yep.
And can he lead it? Blake, anything else on that? Because look at the schedule. Bama, in Baton Rouge. Oklahoma's in Baton Rouge. At Kyle Field sucks. So I don't know. What do you think?
I would say one dangerous game, aside from like the standard Bama USC, that at Arkansas. I think that's a trap game. I like Arkansas. I talked about it during the Arkansas segment. I mean, that's one I would watch for. That's one of those you could slip up easily and ruin your entire season top games. Great point. It's in their favor. I mean, they're avoiding majority of the big. I mean, they're avoiding Georgia, Missouri, Texas, Tennessee, Auburn. Not that I think Auburn's good, but it's hard playing at Jordan, however they say it. They're avoiding a lot of the big games like that in the SEC, so they've got a real chance. But the out of conference with USC kind of makes up a little bit for that. Yeah. So I can see where Trevor's coming from with the 3 losses, but I could just as easily see them with 1 loss.
Because say you go out and you lose week 1 like you did at Florida State last year.
Yeah, and then
yeah. I mean, and the only thing I say to that is that the only reason I kind of I don't want to chalk it, but the only reason I think Oklahoma may be a loss is because after all of that, they're the last game that they have to play. So it's do or die. Like if you walk into that game 11-1 and you lose, that can knock you back enough where it's going to cause some problems.
Yeah.
I would just say one more thing. Brian Kelly, just historically, if you read through like some of the former when he was at Notre Dame, some of the fans there, and I don't know anything about this other than just reading comments. They used to refer to him as the probably not coach. So when it's like, can he win this game? Probably not. So yeah, I mean, will that carry over here? I've never heard that. I literally just read that in YouTube comments about him when I was researching. So
yeah, he needs to have a strong season this year, and that all again hinges on that defense. Blake, I love what you mentioned about the Arkansas game between Ole Miss and Texas A&M, and then Bama down the line too. That's a tough one. That could cause a big slip up, and I'll circle that one for sure. Gentlemen, anything else on these teams before we close it out?
No.
All right. Well, guys, again, the season previews roll on. We got more SEC teams coming up later this week. So make sure you guys stay tuned and subscribe, comment, share with your buddies, other football fans. Again, we appreciate you listening. This is, a lot of work goes into this stuff. So we just trying to help everybody out, get an idea of what these teams look like, so you're a little bit more knowledgeable when you talk with drinking beer with your buddies in the garage. So that's what we're here for. Make sure you share all that good stuff, and we appreciate it. Have a good evening. We'll see you later. Good night.
Adios.
Adios.